And welcome to part 3. As a prologue to this particular part, it's important to note that this video centers mainly around a leak down test. But the owner or the prospective owner was under the gun to either make a decision to buy or not buy the bike. So there's some other things I didn't have time to put on camera. Namely, I bore scoped the engine through the spark plug holes. So that's peeking down in there with the camera to make sure everything was shiny. And squirted some oil down there at the same time before I started spinning the engine by hand. I also, on the bench, ran through the transmission operation to make sure it worked fine. Even said I didn't get a chance to test 100% of the systems, so there's always a bit of a gamble, but I felt I was okay with what I did know. Okay, the best assessment of engine health that I've found to date is a leak down test. And although the look of the bike is probably out of sync for the videos, in this particular test I have the carburetors off and the holes plugged with clean rags or clean towels and the exhaust off. The idea is while I'm setting the valves, I'm also going to check the health of the engine because I've got everything cleared off. If air is leaking out of either a valve or a ring, with the side cover off down here by the crank, I'll be able to hear wherever the air is coming from and where it's leaking, if there is a leak. There always is a leak, but as to what degree the air is leaking when I pump it up. So I did a test here, and I just double checked my cylinder number 2, and just to make sure everything's good. And what I have here, I have 8% leak on number 1, I have 7% leak on number 2, I have 15% leak on number 3, and I have 8% leak on number 4. Now, a very fresh, highly tuned race engine is going to leak somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 3 to 5%, that area. Very, very healthy and tight and new. An engine that has some wear on it is going to be somewhere between 5 and 15. An engine with excessive wear is going to be 15 and up. So 15 is kind of the magic number. Now, I do have one cylinder leaking 15%, but the rest of them are below 10%. So I'm happy with those numbers. This bike will not go to the racetrack. It's not even going to the drag track. It's not going to fun days. It's purely going to be a driver and a keeper for somebody. So 8% across the board with one at 15, that's perfectly fine. If they were all at 15 or 20 or somewhere in that area, it would probably mean a rebuild of some sort. Either the air is leaking around the valves may need to be relapped or reseated, or there's excessive buildup of carbon or something on the seats that would have to be cleared off or burned off with driving. But if the air was leaking around the rings and air noise coming out from the crank down below here, then that's a little more involved. That would be probably an engine bore and rebuild or a cylinder honing or something to have those rings seal better against the cylinder walls. Now, all the air that is leaking from these, since I just set the valves, is coming from the crank case cover down here, which means it's leaking past the rings. And that's where it should be. Now, to my benefit, this engine has not run yet and built up good oil pressure. So there's a possibility that wetting down those cylinder walls and cleaning them off a little bit might improve those numbers a bit and get them even better. But as they sit now, if those are the numbers, I'm happy with them. And we're good to go.